Hello everyone. So we have discussed in the previous lecture the human respiratory system. So today we will discuss the mechanism of breathing. What are the events that takes place during breathing and what are the processes, or what is the, we can say, the process which is involved or which involves during breathing or which involved in breathing. So breathing methods, mechanism of breathing. So breathing, as I have explained, breathing involves inhalation as well as exhalation, that is inhalation of O2 oxygen and exhalation of CO2, that is carbon dioxide, is combined, or we can say collectively known as breathing. Breathing is what? Breathing is inhalation and exhalation. So these are the events which takes place during breathing. Now how does this processes, that is inhalation and exhalation, occurs? What are the events that takes place during these processes? So we can say the principle which is required or which works in inhalation is, we can say the principle which works during inhalation is pressure of air should be low and the volume of thoracic region should be high. Volume of thoracic region should be high. These are the two conditions. We can say in inhalation, during inhalation, the principle which works, or the principle which inhalation works on the principle of these two conditions. That is, these two conditions needs to be fulfilled. These two conditions has to be fulfilled during the process of inhalation. Now what are these two conditions? That is, the pressure of air should be low. The pressure of air should be low and the volume of thoracic region should be high. Then only the inhalation will take place. Pressure of air should be low inside the lungs. We are talking about the internal part, or we can say the inside the individual. The pressure, these two conditions will work inside the individual. That is, the pressure of air should be low, the pressure of air inside the lung should be low, and the volume of thoracic region, that is the upper portion, the volume of thoracic region should be high. Then only the gases will move. When these two conditions get fulfilled, then only the gases will move inside the lungs. Inside the lungs. We know that gases move from its high pressure to its low pressure, and this phenomena, we know that gases move from its high concentration or its high pressure to its low pressure, and this phenomena is termed as diffusion. This phenomena, or this term, this concept is known as, this phenomena is known as diffusion, which has to be maintained, for gaseous exchange. So the principle which is required, or the condition which is required for inhalation to take place is the pressure of air should be low inside the lungs and the volume of thoracic region should be high inside the individual. Then only the gases will move from outside to inside the lungs. The gases, we know that it is fundamental that gases move from their high concentration, that is from their high pressure to their low pressure, and this phenomena is known as diffusion. So basically during breathing, the process or the concept which takes place or which plays the major role in breathing is the diffusion. Diffusion is the, you can say, the base for gaseous exchange. It is the concept which is taking place in breathing, and because of diffusion these gases will exchange, that is the O2 and CO2 will exchange through the process of diffusion. So gases move from its high pressure to low pressure, which is known as diffusion, which has to be maintained for gaseous exchange. Now how does this diffusion will be balanced, or we can say how does this diffusion is maintained? This we will see in the breathing or in inhalation as well as exhalation. So basically this diffusion is maintained with the help of two muscles. There are two types of muscles. Types of muscles which takes or which plays a major role in breathing is, one is diaphragm muscles, and the other one is inner or internal intercostal muscle. Intercostal muscles. This diffusion is maintained with the help of muscles. There are two types of muscles which plays a major role in breathing, that is the diaphragm muscles and the internal intercostal muscle. I have mentioned that is internal intercostal muscles, that is there must be some external also. Now basically what is diaphragm? I have explained it in the previous lecture that diaphragm is a sheet of muscles. Since it is a muscle, it plays or its property is to contract as well as to relax. Similarly, internal intercostal muscle, the location of intercostal muscle is basically, we know that we have 12 pairs of ribs, and because of this ribs, the ribs forms the rib cage, which is the protective shield, and hence it provides protection to the internal vital organs. So this ribs attach to the bones which is present at the front, known as sternum. Sternum is the single bone which is present at our ventral surface, that is it is a single bone which is present at our ventral surface, and the ribs are attached to this sternum from the anterior part, or we can say from the front part, and the other end of the ribs, it is attached dorsally with the vertebral column. So basically I am saying, suppose this is the rib cage, it is attached at its front part with the sternum, and its posterior part or the posterior end is attached with the vertebral column. So suppose this is the rib cage, this is the front part and this is the posterior part. So it is attached with the sternum and the posterior part is attached with the vertebral column dorsally. So basically the internal intercostal muscle, the muscles which is present at the front part of ribs. Suppose these are the pair, 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair and 4 pair. These are the pair of ribs. The muscles which is present at its front part is known as external intercostal muscle, and the muscles which is present beneath the ribs is known as the internal intercostal muscle. So basically what is the location of internal intercostal muscle? That is, it is present beneath or behind the ribs. So since again it is a muscle, so its main property is to contract as well as to relax. Now this is the windpipe, this is lung, and this is the diaphragm. Now how does the inhalation occur? Diaphragm muscles as well as the internal, these are the organs present internally, or we can say in between the rib cage. These are the organs. So what happens in inhalation? During inhalation, what are the events which takes place is contraction of these muscles will occur. the first step in order to inhale oxygen is these muscles will contract. The normal position of diaphragm is dome shaped. Now this muscles, that is a sheet of muscle, diaphragm is what? It is a sheet of muscles. Now this muscles will contract, and because of its contraction, the dome shaped of diaphragm becomes flattened shape. That is, it becomes flattened shape. Now it leaves a gap over here. The space is left over here. Now this dome shape becomes flattened shape, and the internal intercostal muscle, this is the rib cage, and beneath this is the internal costal muscle. Now that muscles will also contract. These two types of muscles will contract. This is the first step. This is the first event during inhalation. These two muscles will contract, and because of that, this diaphragm becomes flattened, and because of the contraction of internal intercostal muscles, the ribs move outward and forward. So whenever we inhale, when you just observe, whenever we inhale, our ribs move upward and downward, upward and forward. That is, the rib cage move upward and forward. And because of the movement of rib cage outward and upward, as well as due to the flattening of diaphragm, the thoracic region, this is what? This is thoracic region. The volume of thoracic region increases. Volume of thoracic region is increases, and because of that, lungs get more space, or lungs got more space to expand themselves. Lungs get more space for their expansion. That is, more space is available for the expansion of lungs, and hence the lungs will expand. Since the lungs will expand, these lungs will expand themselves, and since they will expand, the pressure inside the lungs will decrease. The pressure inside the lungs will decrease, and hence the O2 from outside will enter into the trachea, and then this O2 enters into their respective bronchi, and from that bronchi it enters into the lungs. Okay. So what happens over here is, let's see this with the help of a flow chart. I am talking about inhalation. First of all, contraction of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscle. Internal intercostal muscles. Since contraction of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscle takes place, because of that, diaphragm becomes flattened and ribs move upward and outward. Ribs move upward and outward, outward and upwards. So basically what happens? Thoracic region, volume of thoracic region is increases. Volume of thoracic region increases, and pressure of air, or pressure inside the lungs, we can say, pressure inside the lungs decreases. So basically these two conditions are fulfilled, that is, the volume of thoracic region is increased and the pressure inside the lungs is decreased. Now because of these two, what will happen? Lungs will expand and oxygen, or we can say the air, rushed into the lungs. So basically these events will occur during inhalation, that is first of all the contraction of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscle will take place, that is these two muscles will contract, and because of their contraction diaphragm becomes flattened in shape and the ribs move outward as well as forward. Now because it moves outward and upward, the volume of thoracic region is increases and the pressure inside the lungs will decreases, because the volume of thoracic region has expanded, the volume of lungs will also expand, and because of the expansion of lungs, the volume inside the lungs will also decrease. The lungs will expand and the air, and since the volume of thoracic region is increased and the pressure inside the lungs will decrease, the lungs, or we can say the air, the oxygen is inhaled or it is rushed inside the lungs from the outside. So this is the process of inhalation. Now what happens during exhalation? These events will occur in reverse order, that is these events will occur in reverse order, that is we will see this. Now, since the diaphragm becomes flattened during inhalation, now what will happen? This diaphragm, the muscles of diaphragm will relax. First the muscles of diaphragm was contracted, now they will relax, because it is a property of muscles to contract as well as to relax simultaneously. So the muscles of the diaphragm muscles will relax and it again form, or it again reach to its dome shape. The diaphragm muscles relax and it becomes dome shape. The diaphragm becomes dome shaped, and because of its returning to its original position, the gap is again fulfilled. That gap which it has left in the inhalation is also completed or also filled. So the space is decreased, the volume of thoracic region is decreased. Now the internal intercostal muscle will also relax. These two muscles were contracting themselves in the inhalation. So what will they do during exhalation? They will relax. These muscles will undergo relaxation, and because of relaxation of internal intercostal muscle, the ribs again move to its original position. That is, the ribs undergoes, or the ribs move downward and backward. That is the downward as well as inward. First it goes outward and upward. Now it goes back to its original position, that is it goes or it moves inward and downward during exhalation. And because the ribs is moving inward and this diaphragm is again becomes dome shaped, the region or the volume of thoracic region is again decreased. And since the volume is decreased, so the pressure inside the lungs which were expanded in inhalation, they will again contract. Since the lungs will contract, the pressure inside the lung will increase. The pressure inside the lung will increase, and hence it throws or it pushes the air from the lungs to outside the environment or outside the individual, outside the body of individual. So these are the events. Let's see the events. That is, now the relaxation or relaxation of diaphragm muscles. Basically, what are the events which taking place during exhalation? I am writing over here. Relaxation of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscle. Internal intercostal muscles. Relaxation of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscles takes place and because of their relaxation, the diaphragm again become diaphragm, which is a sheet of muscles, again becomes dome shaped, and the ribs move inward and downward. So basically what happens due to the relaxation of diaphragm muscles and internal intercostal muscle, diaphragm becomes again dome shaped and the ribs move inward and downward. Now because this event has occurred, thoracic volume of thoracic region will decrease, volume of thoracic region will decrease, and the pressure inside the lungs will increase. And since these events have been reversed, basically in inhalation the events have reversed themselves during exhalation, what will happen at the end? That is, the volume of thoracic region will decrease and the pressure inside the lungs will decrease. What will happen? Lungs will contract and the air is pushed outside the lungs, and hence the lungs will contract and the air is pushed outside the lungs. So basically these are the events which takes place during exhalation, that is the relaxation of diaphragm and internal intercostal muscle, which is the first event during exhalation, and then the diaphragm becomes dome shaped. Because of the relaxation of these two muscles, diaphragm again becomes dome shaped, that is it returns back to its original position and the ribs move inward and downward. Then the volume of, because of their movement, the volume of thoracic region, this is the volume of thoracic region, it will reduce, and since the volume is reduced, the lungs will also contract, which have been relaxed or which have been expanded themselves in the inhalation. So they undergo contraction, and since they will contract, the pressure inside the lungs will also increase. The pressure of air inside, gases inside the lungs will increase. The gases are pushed, or we can say the air is pushed out of the lungs to the outer environment or to the surrounding. So this is the mechanism of breathing, which involves inhalation as well as exhalation. So these are the events which takes place during breathing. These are the muscles which plays a major role during breathing. So that's all about breathing. We will study about how does the gaseous exchange, since we have seen that the gas will move in this way, that is inhalation will occur, the uptake of oxygen will occur in this way and the CO2 is inhaled in this way. Now how does this CO2 and O2 is exchanged internally or inside the individual? How this gaseous exchange will take place? We will see this in the next lecture. Thank you.